Hey there, it's Gail again. I'm a transformational visibility coach, helping a transformational visibility coach, helping new earth leaders and entrepreneurs, healers, coaches, and world changers show up powerfully, claim space, and expand your impact by boldly sharing who you are as a soul. And yesterday, I shared a video about claiming space and feeling invisible. And so today, we're going to talk a little bit more about why you may feel invisible and what you can do about that. Before we get into that, I just want to recap yesterday's video. If you missed that, I'll put the link to that in the comments below. You may want to pause this video and watch that and then come back. But I talked a little bit about how that feeling of being invisible might show up in your business. There are always going to be times where you might feel that on occasion, but we talked about if you're noticing this as a pattern in your business, you may want to consider taking a deeper look at why this is happening for you. And in that video, I gave some examples of what that might look like, as well as the idea that the reason there's a pattern happening around this invisibility is connected to false beliefs and old wounds potentially playing out in your business. And today we're going to explore why this happens. Why do we feel invisible? And it often connects, as I mentioned in yesterday's video, it often connects to our lived experiences. A lot of the times, specifically, it connects to our lived experiences of being rejected in some way. So this might be experiencing rejection in our relationships, in particular our family relationships or friendships, maybe even in love relationships and partnerships. But also being rejected on, a more societal level. For example, with stereotypes, we're seeing a lot of this in our world right now, being rejected because of our beliefs or because of race or because of how we identify with our gender, our religion, right? We can sometimes feel overlooked simply because of who we actually are, right? If we're not part of mainstream society, oftentimes it's possible to be treated as other and to really feel overlooked or ignored or invisible. Shyness is another reason why we can feel invisible. Some people, it takes them a while to warm up to other people, especially new people. And if the way that we cope with our shyness is to continue to be on the sidelines, on the edges of the crowd, it just kind of perpetuates that cycle of being invisible. And emotional neglect and abuse is another reason why we may feel invisible. In fact, with abuse, being invisible might have actually been a coping mechanism to help you stay and feel safe. With emotional neglect, it's more around perhaps feeling like your caregivers or your family, whoever was there as you were growing up, feeling like maybe it didn't seem like it mattered to them if you were present or not. So these are some of the reasons why we may feel invisible, and they can be carried into our businesses, and they can show up when we start to boost our own visibility and step into the next levels of leadership within our business. I remember one of my experiences, one of my early experiences with this, where I started to kind of connect these dots. I was working in a marketing department at an engineering company, doing a lot of marketing communications, writing articles, case studies, and working alongside the engineers who were working on the projects that we were writing about. And it was actually, it was a savvy way to get visibility for these projects, to team up the engineer, the technical person, with the communication expert, essentially, right, from the marketing department. And I remember this one particular article that I was helping an engineer with, and it was a very high profile project. And I was getting really upset about it because I was doing a lot of work on it. And I had began to notice this pattern of like, wait a minute, like we're doing a lot of this work here, but we're not getting credit for it. And this sense of not feeling valued. Now, whether or not the engineers valued, I don't know. I honestly don't know, but I was present to the fact that I wasn't feeling valued. And I was feeling invisible, that my work and my efforts, which I really cared about the work that I was doing. I was genuinely wanting to do a great job. Even though I didn't work on the technical aspects of these projects, I wanted them to show well. I wanted them to get this visibility, and I was going to do really good work in order to support that. And yet I wasn't getting credit for it. And I was upset about it. And so I remember the day that I was talking to my boss, who luckily, I had a very good rapport with my boss. So we had good connection. And I started talking about this article, and I felt myself getting choked up and getting upset, and like all of this stuff that I was upset about, that I was trying to hide and suppressed, it just kind of bubbled up. And, luckily he was understanding enough to sort of be like, what's going on? I could see like he had this look like surprised of my reaction. And it was in that moment that I had to really make a decision of, well, am I going to be seen in my vulnerability around this? And it was kind of too late to go back anyway, because it had already started to be visible, right? And so I decided, okay, I'm going to express freely what's going on here for me. And I shared with him, like, we do all this work. Like, I know that they do all the technical work, and I would never expect us to get the credit for technical work, because we didn't do that, but we are doing this communication piece of things. Like, we are literally supporting them so that they can do their technical work, and so that they can do what they do best. We do what we do best, but we don't get credit for it. And it was really upsetting to me. Had I continued to sort of be in that place of feeling upset about not getting that credit, but not speaking up about it, right? Not bringing awareness and not speaking the truth about how it was making me feel, nothing would have changed. And I began to recognize, like, oh, okay, this also kind of reminds me of in childhood, where, I would go to family members, and I would ask, like, do you want to play a game? I want to play a board game with me. Will you play catch with me? And I would often the response was, oh, I'm too tired, or I don't want to, or I'm doing something else, or, it was often a no. It was, and at that age, it was perceived as a rejection of me, not a rejection to the request, but a rejection of me. And so I started to get into this pattern of, well, I still want to do these things, so I'm just going to go and do it. But I'm not going to talk about it. I'm just going to go and do my thing. And in that sense, it was learning how to do the things I love without necessarily much fanfare around it, right? Like just being invisible about, well, I want to play ball, so I'm going to go out and play ball. And I'm not going to say anything about it when I get back into the house. And I'm not going to share any of my experiences around that. I'm not going to talk about how it feels to have to do this by myself. Right. Probably a lot less thought going on about that, but that was the pattern that was starting to develop in childhood that then started to show up in adulthood through my professional career. And this assumption that, well, they don't care. They don't care what I'm going to do anyway. So I'm just going to do what I'm going to do. Right. And so there was a piece of that was kind of playing out in this. Well, I love doing these articles. I love writing about these projects. Like it's really cool. And I'm going to do what I love. And sort of on default being in that place of, well, I'm doing what I love, but nobody notices, nobody sees it. Right. And this was the moment where that subconscious pattern was actually becoming conscious to me, and that I didn't want to do that anymore. So these are some of the reasons why we might feel invisible. This is how it might show up in your work. And the reality is that chances are the cause of your invisibility is not your fault, yet your invisibility won't change unless you change your approach. And that's what I learned from that experience when I was working with that engineering company, was that, well, I was not going to get credit unless I did something different. And until I was willing to do something different, nothing was going to change. So how might this relate to you? I'd love to hear your reflections in the comments. And if this is resonating with you, I'd love for you to like this video, subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell if you'd like to get more content like this and be notified of it. And for those of you compassionate and inspiring leaders who really want to claim space and source your visibility from within, I invite you to stick around. Stay tuned for tomorrow's video because I'm going to talk more about that. All right. Bye.